pushed by the waves. Everybody getting rushed to their graves. Everybody got enough to be saved, but they don't make heroes no more.
These Raws just keep getting more and more ashy. This show, dry. I'm talking turkey in the oven too long dry. Just not good. Just half cooked. I mean, there's some good stuff on it, of course, but for the most part, just not interesting. So, we got to talk about Monday Night Raw from Calgary, September the 9th, 2024. Got news and notes. We're going to talk about MVP. He moonwalking that statement about calling Triple H a racist. But we're going to start with the announcement that they made on television that was reinforced on social media, and that is Monday Night Raw will be 2 hours beginning October the 7th and going to the end of the year. In other words, USA did not want to pay for the third hour, so they only paid for 2. And since Raw is going to Netflix, there's no need in them spending any extra money. So, everybody's very excited about this, myself included. Of course, Raw is easier to sit through when it's 2 hours. That will force them to put some effort in to getting, shortening up some of these matches. And then the show probably needs to be 2 hours anyway. It's going to eventually go back to 3. The Netflix deal is probably going to be for 3 hours, if we're being honest. That's why they said from October 7th to the end of the year. So I might actually get some sleep on Mondays now. But it's a good move. I don't think it'll be a permanent move. And I think, well, if it did become a permanent move and they decide to just rock with 2 hours for the rest of the year from October 7th forward, what you're going to see is probably a lot of layoffs because they're not going to need as much talent. Probably not going to need as many writers or as many producers. So that third hour, not only are they getting paid for it, but there's talent that specifically exists just because Raw has 3 hours. So I am excited for Raw to go back to 2 hours, though. Everybody wanted this. They've been begging for it. They've been clamoring for it. They've been talking about it. So they're going to get a temporary reprieve from 3 hour Raws. And who knows, maybe if they perform very well, Netflix will forgo the third hour and we'll just go back to having 2 hour Raws. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I wouldn't be mad at that. I'm at the age where a 2 hour Raw is enough for me. 2 hours is what it was when I was a kid. 2 hours is what it needs to be. That 3 hour business, I mean, I don't think there has been a good episode of Monday Night Raw in the 3 hour era. That's just my opinion. Even if you start having a good show, 9 times out of 10, the damn thing is going to collapse in that third hour. And it happens pretty much every time. It's very difficult to get people through that third hour. It's very, very hard. All right, let's move on to Kiana James. There's a report floating around about Kiana James being moved to miscellaneous, which is what they do with talent who are not going to appear and may have been injured. So they figured that she suffered a leg injury, according to PW Insider. So Kiana James not being on TV is because she's injured, and they say she's going to be out 6 months. My God, 6 months. I mean, is the PC still collecting hamstrings and ACLs? Well, if it was an ACL, it'd probably be a year, right? My goodness. Very difficult time for everybody. Kiana James barely got started, and she's already out. Hot damn. Okay. So let's talk about MVP now. I'm not going to read the whole statement that MVP put out there, but I'm going to read enough of it to get you guys the idea that he's been trying to kind of walk this back. And I'm not buying it. I think he was just upset. He knee-jerked because he was talking shit and didn't know people were screenshotting him. You should know by now. You should know it by now. You can't do anything on this here internet. You can't do anything on this here world without somebody having a camera or something in your face or in the general vicinity recording what you do. So he says, quote, "It made the rounds that MVP said Triple H was racist. I never said that word. I never said that." Then he says, "Somebody made a comment on my social media about how he books black talent. I never said he was a racist. I never said that. That was never anything I said. Now my opinion on how he books talent of color, that's a different conversation. But I never said the man was racist." All right. He says, "As far as Triple H, I don't know that he is. I don't know what his motivations are. But I never said that he was racist." Well, you heavily implied that the man was racist, MVP. Heavily implied it. You fed into other people calling him a racist. Look, if I'm with, somebody and they say, "Hey, Tim, I think he's a Nazi." You're like, whoa, I'm not going to be like 100. You see it. Like, does that make sense? Like, hey, I think Tim is a child molester. You see it. 100. Like, no, that's not how people act. If you don't think that the guy is a racist, you'd be like, I don't know if I would go that far. But, there's all kinds of ways for you to change this up and tweet this out. Maybe you could say, "Look, man, I was upset. I don't want to put that out there because I don't believe that," or whatever. But ultimately, he was calling the man racist. He's now trying to back it up and back up off of it. But it's what he said. Like he never said Triple H is a racist. Okay, he never said those words. But here is what he actually said. He says, a fan said, "The Triple H era is emasculating black men. I'm really hating it." And MVP said, "You see it." Another fan said, "Vince f***ed this up." I assume it was him. MVP said Triple H had the power to fix it. He's talking about the Hurt Business, right? And, you can't do this. You can't be like, he's emasculating black men and all this kind of stuff. And then when somebody actually calls you out and says, "Yeah, let's talk about this," you're like, "Oh, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I never said that." Because here's one of the things that another fan said. It says, quote, they quoting Triple H about, Booker T, and MVP did 100. Like what are you doing? How are you going to act this way and then act like you're not calling the man racist? And then here's the crazy thing. The issue came out in June. It is now September, and you're just now saying, "Well, I didn't mean it that way." It was 3 months ago. So you mean to tell me that you could have woke up the very next day, saw Instagram, Twitter, and whatever, calling Triple H a racist with MVP's name attached to it, and you could have said, look, guys, I don't mean it that way. Or, "No, I wouldn't say that he was a racist." You wait 3 months to then say, "I never used those words. I implied it, but I never said that. I never came out and said it." It's like, oh, come on, man. Get real, MVP. Stop playing with us, man. You're not the only high IQ person running around here, man. Stop playing. We can read between the lines. And he also called the man a coward and a liar. Like, get real. This is ridiculous, bro. I get it. You might not like him because he didn't go with your idea. And he's had a couple of other things to say, like about Omos. That, he doesn't want Omos to be another big show. And that if you can't make money with Omos, you're an idiot. He also made the statement about, if you lose Brock Lesnar, why wouldn't you put Bobby Lashley in that situation? I get it. Here's the thing. I was actually kind of in agreement with MVP. Not that Triple H is a racist, but that Triple H was booking black talent in a certain way, and I didn't necessarily agree with. And there were not enough positive black male images on television. Let's put it like that. And it still isn't. Again, this thing happened in June. That's when all this stuff happened. And outside of Obafemi and maybe one other guy who's, escaping my mind right now, most black male talent in AEW are either comedic or they're underneath guys. So if they're not, doing the funnies, they're on the underneath. And that's the only one that's actually like a top level black talent is Obafemi. And I guess you could say Wesley. I guess Wesley can count. But those are both NXT and they're being booked by Shawn Michaels, not Triple H. So on the main roster of WWE, are there any black talent that are being booked in a way that is competent? Not even the Street Profits, and they're probably the most prominent black talents. Not even really Jade and Bianca, if you even want to just say the women too. Not even really Naomi either, So I actually was siding with MVP because when you saw the last day's events, he was trying to make Lashley a thing. He was trying to make Bianca a thing, and then Triple H came in and inverted everything, and basically Lashley is gone now, and Bianca is doing tag team stuff with Jade Cargill. Not that there's a problem with that, but her time has been diminished to the point where she barely gets a crowd reaction anymore. She really doesn't do much of anything anymore, and that actually is a nice little segue to the rest of this show, considering this Calgary crowd was dead with the exception of, the stuff with Bret Hart. Otherwise, they really didn't care about much of anything on this show. But before we really get into the show, I do want to take some time to talk about this hockey thing. I don't get it. And I saw some people online that was saying like, oh, this is a nice touch. They're referencing the dead hockey guy. I don't know anything about him. I don't know how he died. It don't matter. I just saw Gatorade and jerseys all over the lawn. And I'm like, what are they doing? And I'm like, why are we taking time out of the wrestling show to talk about hockey? This is clearly a Nick Khan idea. Nick Khan is obsessed with trying to turn pro wrestling and trying to turn this company, specifically, let's say, into some kind of knockoff of ESPN or whatever that just happens to have matches in between. I don't get it. I don't know. Like, I don't care about hockey. I don't watch hockey. That guy being like, are they going to stop hockey games to talk about dead pro wrestlers? Like, no, they don't do that. So why the hell are we stopping the pro wrestling show to talk about dead hockey players? That may sound tough. Like, oh man, that's hard. I'm just being real. I don't care. So it's like, you can show me all the purple Gatorades you want. I'm not. Let's move this show along, bro. Like, we got other things to do. You gave this guy more TV time than 90% of the roster. There's a bunch of people on the roster that don't get TV time, and you gave it to this dead hockey player that nobody knows. Well, I'm pretty sure Calgary knew. I guess that was the point. But I'm a different breed of person. I don't give a shit about hockey. Sorry. I hate to see that anybody passed away, but I can't muster up the energy to care about that right now. So let's talk about Monday Night Raw, which I barely have the energy to care about. So we start the show with a street fight, 8-person street fight. Well, a 9-person street fight is probably more correct. The Wyatt Six defeat the American Made, which is the Creed brothers, Chad Gable, and Ivy Nile. Officially, the Wyatt Six were Joe Gacy, Eric Rowan, Dexter Lumis, and Nikki Cross, who are, I just realized, wrestling under those names. So they're not wrestling under the Wyatt names. Okay. This match was boring. The crowd didn't care about either team, really. I mean, They gave the Wyatts a pretty good response when they first started, but as soon as the bell rang, it seemed like everybody was just watching them toddle around. The Creeds are indeed green, and so is Ivy Nile. And so it takes some doing to work with them. Gacy, Rowan, and Loomis are just skin suits. Like, I don't think anybody really cares about them as much as they just appreciate the gimmick. So you had that problem. Ivy Nile was chilling for like minutes on end in this match. She was just sitting in the corner, playing Uno or something. I don't know what the hell she's doing over there in that corner. Reapplying her makeup, whatever. She came in and she did little stuff here and there, but for the most part, she didn't do much in this match at all. At one point, Eric Rowan picked up a piece of the barricade and started attacking people with it, which would have been great if it wasn't padded. So, like, he was, like, running, hitting people with this padded barricade, which is, I guess you're supposed to forget that it's padded and just think that he's hitting them with, like, a hard surface. Nikki Cross German suplex Chad Gable, and I rolled my eyes at that because I was like, oh, that's the last thing Chad Gable needed, is to get picked up and thrown by a 5'4" woman. That's the last thing he needed for his gimmick. Nikki Cross, boy, she had so much potential when she started, like with Sanity, but all the years of mediocrity, and she's basically become like the female Glenn Jacobs, where she's been a crazy lunatic Tasmanian devil. She's been a sidekick that barely talks. She's been catatonic. She's been a superhero. Now she's a witch zombie or whatever. I mean, god damn it. She's got to be up there with Charles Wright. How many different gimmicks that she's had. It's like he was Papa Shango and Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine, and the Godfather and the Good Father. Like, she's got so many characters, and almost none of them have ever gotten over. At the very least, usually when somebody has a million gimmicks like this, one of them gets over. And they become known for that gimmick. Like when Glenn Jacobs became Kane, then you forget that he was the fake Diesel, and you forget that he was, Isaac Yankem DDS until you go back and watch that stuff. You just kind of forget that he was even in those gimmicks because he was so good as Kane. Same thing with, Charles Wright. Like, unfortunately, you tend to forget about Papa Shango, which was actually pretty good. Because the Godfather got over so strong, you forget that he was even in those other characters. But Nikki Cross, every iteration seems to be worse than the previous one. And it seems like these characters are half-baked. The only one that seemed to have a full character arc is when Nikki Cross went from being crazy to being docile and hanging out with Alexa Bliss to slowly but surely becoming crazy again. And then all of a sudden she just went on a hard break from reality and became a superhero out of nowhere. And everybody was like, oh, okay. And then it's been weird ever since. But you got to give the girl some credit. She's been around for a really long time. She's been soaking up this cash like a sponge, going to college, getting her education on, so she don't have to stay here and do this shit. She's doing this for fun now. I don't know. She probably got a master's in basket weaving or whatever at this point. It don't even matter. She's just setting herself up for success while she do these silly gimmicks. But ultimately, she's been around a very long time to have never been over. So I got to ask the question of, how is it? Well, I guess she was over as part of the Alexa Bliss tag team. She was over as a member of Sanity. But how long ago were these things? The stuff with Alexa Bliss was during the pandemic. That was 4 years ago. And the stuff with her in NXT with Sanity, that was 2017, 2018? That was a long ass time ago. And she's still around, strong. Unreal. What a run by Nikki Cross. What an amazing run this career has been. You want to be a mid-carder, you can stick around forever. Main event, no, they get rid of you very quickly. Mid-carders, they just hold on to you. They hold you tight. I'm going to talk about this match too long. Anyway, Uncle Howdy ended up interfering in the match by giving Chad Gable a sister Abigail. This was after Chad Gable stared him down outside the ring. This led to, I believe it was it Eric Rowan that got the pin? I don't know. It don't matter. Anyway, American Made lost. Now, I clearly was like looking at the Wyatts, and I said, man, they started out in the main event, and now they're in the first match with no crowd reaction at all, and nobody seems to give a shit. And now what? Maybe nobody cared because people don't really care about American Made because all they've done is lose since the damn faction was formed, which is unfortunate, but it's hard for people to get behind these monsters when, you know, the people that they're fighting are just there, just bodies, you know. And you would think them walking around with American flags would get a lot of heat in Canada, but it didn't. So Triple H, his gamble failed. All right, so let's talk about Finn Balor and Damian Priest. So I'm going to truncate this. The brother, Finn Balor, the brother. That's what he is. Oh, it's your brother. Whatever that meant. Anyway, he said that Damian Priest made him a sidekick. He ain't nobody's sidekick. Damian Priest screwed him out of the World Championship. So he screwed Damian Priest out of the World Championship. And then said he wanted to have a one-on-one match at Bad Blood. Damian Priest marched to the ring after snatching his vest off, but still managed to let Finn Balor talk. I want to hear what you got to say. And then I'm going to kick your ass. Like, why? Why not just kick his ass now and then not worry about what he's got to say? So then Finn Balor was like, you know how Judgment Day rolls? And then it took like, nobody did anything. And then eventually they jumped the barricades. And of course, Rhea Ripley came out there and she's got a weapon. So she attacks Liv Morgan with the crutch and she attacks Dominic with the crutch. And then they eventually take her down and they start beating on her leg with the crutch and they start beating Damian Priest. And then Damian Priest jumps atop Rhea Ripley to take the lashings on her behalf. And this all happened to no crowd reaction, seemingly. Then Jey Uso, music played, the crowd popped, and then he ran to the ring. So there was that. Backstage, Judgment Day got into it with the LWO because this is the feud that never ends. It just goes on and on, my friends. Dragon Lee speaking English, saying that he has backup now, knowing that Judgment Day is never alone. He then got threatened by Judgment Day, all of them did. Then Ray challenged Finn Balor to a match later tonight. Okay, so Dragon Lee lost that match, by the way, because he's always losing. This is his first year. He loses every single match he's in. He lost to Dirty Dominic Mysterio. So a brawl broke out outside the ring, which led to Liv Morgan sneaking in the ring while the ref was distracted. Chop blocked Dragon Lee, setting up Dominic to hit the 619 in the finish. I'm okay with Dominic getting the win, but my God, can Dragon Lee win something? I mean, at this point, man, I don't even think Dragon Lee could win a card game. You know, he couldn't beat a rug at this point. This guy's just, you have not done a good job of showing off Dragon Lee. They just haven't. They've done a piss poor job. Double back to what I was saying about MVP. Man, we was talking about black men, but my God, the Latinos. He hasn't been doing a good job of beating these Latinos either. These guys never seem to do anything. They all lumped together. They all basically are just draped in colors and shit, and they just lose a lot. That's all they do. Like, this sucks. We need to break up this LWO thing. This thing needs to be broken up. There really is no purpose for it anymore. You know, and I thought they were supposed to be feuding with Carlito. Is that over? Like, Carlito was supposed to be hiding out with the Judgment Day to escape getting jumped by the LWO. They don't even mention that anymore. Like, that was the whole reason he was supposed to be hanging out with the Judgment Day anyway. But now they just kind of hand wave that, and he's just in the Judgment Day, big and bulky as ever. However, moving on, because Dragon Lee, I'm sorry to see it, but I like Dominic, so Dominic can win. Finn Balor, versus Rey Mysterio was match 5. Finn Balor throws the match by putting Rey in a Boston Crab in the rope on Rey Mysterio's one of his repaired legs. You know, Rey Mysterio a couple weeks ago, he put out his stem cell treatments or whatever, and it just looked like a CVS receipt. Like you see all of this stuff that he's injected into his body. He's like the $6 million man all of a sudden. Like he's like a cyborg. It's like, what is he injecting into his body at this point? Like all this shit. He's injecting all this shit into his body and then going back to wrestle. He don't need to. Inject all this shit into your body and then go chill. You know? Go hang out with Angie. I'm not saying, look, I love Rey. Rey Mysterio is legitimately one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But if he has to, you know, go down to some seedy underbelly and just say, you know, put this in my leg, and I'm going to put this in my ankle, and I'm going to put this in my elbow, and I'm going to put this in my neck. I'm like, come on, man. You've done enough, Rey. You know, you just running laps for fun at this point. You know, we got what we got out of you. You know, please don't stop experimenting on yourself. You know, stop doing this. You're going to wake up like fucking Bloodshot tomorrow or something. Anyway, Finn Balor really hurt Rey, and then he tried to beat him up post-match a little bit, which was stopped by like referees and stuff. So, Finn Balor. Let's talk about Finn Balor because he's another one that's been around forever. Did you know Finn Balor has been in WWE since at the very least 2015? It's been almost 10 years for Finn Balor. And he's been like wallpaper. He's just been there. He's main evented a couple pay-per-views here and there. He gets in a big feud once every 18 months. You know, sometimes he's a champion, sometimes he's not. But when Finn Balor is retired, what are you going to remember? Well, you're going to remember that he was kind of the guy that dragged NXT into the mainstream. You know, he was on the cover of TV Guide as being one of the next big wrestling stars. And then Vince looked at him and saw he was like 5'7" and skinny. And it was like, no. No. That's going to be a no here, pal. But Finn Balor, man, I like this guy. I really do. But the inconsistent pushes over the course of a decade has made me just not have any faith in him. He's not a new face anymore. He's been there forever. There's no reason to believe that he's ever going to rise above the situation that he's currently in. You know, like he is a solid mid-card act. And he has the potential to be more, you know. But he's not the greatest promo in the world. I can't wait for him to do stuff like CM Punk. That's the stuff that really just kind of drives me up the wall. Is I would love to see CM Punk versus Finn Balor. I think they can work a huge program together. I think they would have killer kick-ass matches. But that would be taking Finn Balor far more seriously than he's been taken in a long, long time. Like, the Edge thing was an aberration because he hadn't been taken seriously again for a while before he did that. And then it was like, what was it, maybe 6 or 8 months before, you know, when he got taken seriously in the Roman angle. And then, you know, God or whatever clipped that top rope. And who did that, by the way? Who took that? Who took the top rope down? You know, how did that? We never got the answer to that question. It just never came up again. Anyway, it always takes like large periods of time before Finn Balor actually does something in this company. He's completely and totally forgotten, and then people remember that he's there, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, Finn Balor is there. He is like a really good wrestler. Yeah, he is. But, you know, he's like Dolph Ziggler, the Irish version. He looks great, talks fine, kind of small, but, you know, if you did something with him, he might actually be over, but they don't really care. They don't really care. It's unfortunate, especially now that you would have thought that he'd have got a big push with Triple H, but I guess that's kind of what's happening. You know, Triple H got a little bit more of a hand in creative, and Edge helped him a little bit. And that has raised his profile a bit. But this Judgment Day thing has completely, once more, put him in the doldrums. So now you got this guy who's been around for a long time. He's about to fight this former world champion and Damian Priest, and nobody believes in him. He's been around all this time, and nobody has any faith that Finn Balor is going to win that match, or they even could. That's the nature of the booking of Finn Balor. Let's move on. Bret Hart comes out there, and boy, did he look lost. They showed Bret Hart backstage. He was dressed in really regular clothes. He didn't bother to put on a Hitman jacket or nothing. He just came from the house and showed up. But one thing I will say for sure is Bret's voice has not changed. Usually when guys get Bret's age, they get that old, the Joe Biden voice. Bret just looks very, very old and unkempt because he didn't brush his hair. But he still has the same strength in his voice that he did, 30 years ago. So that's very good. And he's not like Mick Foley where he has like brain rot and his teeth going to fall out of his mouth while he's talking. So there's a level of dignity that still remains with Bret Hart. He's still cognitively fine. Nothing's falling off of him. Nothing's falling apart. He's not like Shawn Michaels where he got a wandering eye, or Foley where his dentures is going to fall out of his head, or, anything like that. So Bret just looks like a respectable old man. He doesn't look like he was ever a pro wrestler, though. He just looks like he's always been a guy on a farm or something. So I guess that's kind of how he wants it to be. He decided not to be Bret Hart the gimmick. He decided to be Bret Hart the man. Anyway, he started talking about being a Canadian champion and how Canadian champions never duck a challenge. They always had to prove themselves the way that he had to. The crowd, of course, ate all of this up. They love Bret Hart. Gunther interrupted, said that Bret Hart was a childhood hero. And this was like a passing of the torch moment, because Bret Hart is the best there ever was, but Gunther himself is the best there is and the best there ever will be. They got pretty good boos from the crowd. You could tell that Gunther was having fun with this. And then he says that Bret Hart is a childhood hero, but he's his second. He'll always be second to Bill Goldberg. And the crowd, Bret himself looked like, what? And the crowd was like, ugh. That was a nice button to push. I wonder who fed him the Bill Goldberg line. Anyway, at that point, Sami Zayn comes out there to get the pop for, Canadian heroes, Canadian champions. He's wearing a jersey because, hockey all up in wrestling now. Some people want their peanut butter and their jelly in the same jar. I'm not one of those people. Sami Zayn says that Gunther is playing games. Bret Hart is a hero to everybody. He's Sammy's hero. Then he says, well, if you're the best there is, you need to prove it. And he challenged him to a championship match again. Gunther said no, because Bret Hart isn't in Gunther's league. And Sami Zayn, well, he's not even in Bret Hart's league. So the answer is no. And then Gunther walks away. While Gunther is walking away, Bret Hart calls him a dirty yellow coward, which is fantastic and very Clint Eastwood. You're a coward. You're a coward, son. I think Calgary is like the Texas of Canada. Yeah. Anyway, I just feel like all the Calgarians or whatever the fuck, Calgarians? What is a Calgary? Calganians? Calgarians? Who knows? I don't know. I just feel like they're all cowboys. So Gunther was upset by this. He took off his suit jacket, showing that he was wearing a t-shirt underneath. I'm like, okay. And him and Sammy have a slap fight that ends up being separated by two referees, and one of them was a female referee. So they didn't really want to fight. And Sami Zayn looks like his punches couldn't beat an egg. He probably couldn't disturb a bowl of oatmeal with that punch. God damn it. Why Sami Zayn got to be so good at pro wrestling and yet never looked the part? Vince Russo was absolutely correct. Him and Dr. Chris Featherstone, well, Russo's especially, went on like a 2 or 3 minute ramble about JD McDonough and Sami Zayn not looking like pro wrestlers. And if guys like that could be main event guys, then anybody can. And I say, my God, I loathe to give Vince Russo any credit. I loathe to give that man any credit. But he was right. I've been saying Sami Zayn looked like a goddamn bum. I've been saying that for 2 or 3 years now. And at first it looked like it was on purpose. You know, like that what Vince was going for was him looking unkempt and, you know, him being crazy because he was a conspiracy theorist and all that. And then he just kind of settled into, he's a new Daniel Bryan. He's not going to comb his hair. He's not going to tame that beard. He's going to wear drab clothes. But he's going to go out there and have a pretty good match if you can stand it. And you can see Sami Zayn in 25, 30 years showing back up to Monday Night Raw looking like Santa Claus. Just like Bret, in a plain button-up shirt, just looking like he's on his way to the grocery store. And he's like, Sami Zayn, former WWE champion, because I believe it's going to happen. And he's going to show up on Monday Night Raw. Oh, ew. I rue the day. I rue the day. Normal folks like Sami Zayn could be the WWE champion, but I think it's inevitable, personally. Triple H ain't gonna stop until it happens. So, Gunther not wanting to fight Sami Zayn because Sami Zayn was the last guy to beat him. It's good stuff. Undertaker has suggested that Gunther be a little bit more cowardly and cheat more. Otherwise, they're gonna turn him babyface. Because who the hell, if he doesn't need to cheat and he could just beat everybody, then he would be a babyface, right? And I actually agree with that. So they're doing that here by showing that Gunther doesn't want to be a fighting champion and to fight Sami Zayn. But he's also not interested in fighting anyone else either. So he's just like basking in being the champion right now. Which is fine because he just won it. So let's have a little fun. So Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defeat Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. That's the thing that occurred. Moving on. The PFC, the League of Extraordinary Lesbians, they wrestled Lyra Valkyria, Zelina Vega, and Natalya. Look, I knew it was going to be Natalya, so I'm not tripping. But it was still Natalya, and therefore not good for my mental health. But she's been gone for so long, I missed them knockers. Anyway, they won. They beat the League of Extraordinary Lesbians because they're losers, and they've done nothing but lose since their team formed, too. Somebody tapped out the sharpshooter. It doesn't matter, no. Just move on. Natty and Bret had a moment backstage, which was very nice. Drew McIntyre, he came out there to brag about all the terrible things he did to your boy Philip. He said, every time you chant for CM Punk, just realize it's in memory of, which I liked. Says that Punk won the match by touching all four corners. He didn't beat him, so it's not over. Then he says he made CM Punk a bigger star than ended his career. Say his new movie is coming out. He wants to be world champion, so things are perfect. But then he decided to go pick a fight with Wade Barrett. And this is what my favorite part of the show, because this was very good. He said that he wasn't mad at Wade. He said that he was disappointed. But if Wade ever does anything like that again, he's not going to be disappointed. He's going to be angry. And Wade wasn't going to take this shit. He's not going to let Drew talk to him like this. Wade and Drew, they go back, you know. So Wade is like Sheamus the second. Because, you know, those guys that came over from England and Ireland and everything. So and Wade Barrett is one of Drew's best friends and all this. He's gonna get in Drew's face, kind of tighten that screw he seems to have loose up there, right? And so Adam Pearce saunters his bald ass out there and starts talking about how this is a charade. You don't want to fight him. He doesn't want to fight you. How do you know? Don't mean like they wanted to fight to me. And then he starts talking about how CM Punk isn't done. He's spoken to CM Punk. And it will be the two of them one more time at Bad Blood, and this will be the final match. Drew McIntyre said this is going to be CM Punk's death warrant. Then he said, Hell in a Cell. And Joe Tessitore was like, let's go. Let's go. You know what? I don't hate that guy. He's actually not bad. So McIntyre, Punk, Hell in a Cell was the main event of Bad Blood. Right decision. Absolutely the right decision. Now all we gotta do is let them go with the blade a little bit. They don't need to go and, staple shit to each other's foreheads and, with roofing nails or anything like that. Just let them bleed. That's all you really gotta do. Just let them use the blade a little bit. And I think we'll have some fun with this one. So once the whole thing was over, Wade Barrett is sitting back at his desk rather calm and mentions that Drew McIntyre does not have a good record at Hell in a Cell. I don't know what his record is at Hell in a Cell, but I know he lost the title to Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell, if I remember correctly. It was Randy Orton. I think he lost the belt to at Hell in a Cell. It was one or the other. But I'm pretty sure Drew McIntyre is not going to be happy about that. And they also announced that CM Punk will be back next week. So a week and a half off after a beating. That sounds about right. That sounds very WWE. You get your eyes gouged and God beats you and stuff plastic down your throat and kick you in the face 100 times. I'll be back in a week. It's all right. It works out just fine. And there was some old bullshit about the New Day, but I don't care about them. They's talking about there's a 10-year anniversary of the New Day. We need like a Jake Roberts celebration where they get gifts and then somebody's like a hatchet comes out and splits, Xavier Woods right in the fucking head or something. Maybe somebody need to put a snake in a bag to jump out during their celebration or something. They need to get crushed by a giant box of Bootios or whatever. Who the hell cares about this? Oh, I forgot about the main event. I was trying to get through this and I was like, man, what was the main event? I had to look through my notes like, oh, okay, it was that Fatal 4-Way thing that they didn't really build up all night. Their version of building this up is promos by all of the guys, which I guess is better than nothing, but it's like a shade above nothing. Braun Strowman talking like a completely normal person, saying that it's going to take more than what Bronson Reed did to him to keep him out of this match. Then Braun Breaker sauntered over there, says that you don't have to be 7 foot and 900 pounds to be a monster. Said he hopes Braun Strowman is going to win. Well, he was wrong there. Then he, of course, ran into Pete Dunne, who wants to be a double champion because he's going to win the Intercontinental title and the NXT title. He needs to win something to clear up whatever he's got on his face. He got assaulted by Sheamus, so you ain't got to worry too much about him. Then there was Ilya Dragunov, who talked about wanting to dig in deep because he wants the prize at the end of this because he got unfinished business with Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker was like, I beat you. The business is finished. It is complete. And then Jey Uso just appears, yeets, and moves on with his day. There was no promo. So this is the main event of the evening, a match I did not want to see and probably should have been the first match on the show. Jey Uso, Ilya Dragunov, Braun Strowman, Pete Dunne. And Jey Uso won the match. So the most over guy in the match won the match, which is the right decision to make. It's not likely going to be the best match, but hey, that's not the important part here. The important part here is Braun Breaker's about to wrestle one of the most over baby faces on the entire roster. Somebody that people fully believe in and people want to see him win that title. That's going to be big for Braun Breaker. So this, even if the match is not going to be great, it's going to be a fun match because people are into Braun Breaker now. He probably could be doing more, especially in terms of appearances and getting out there in front of the people and talking. But at least Jey is over. And that's the important thing, is Jey being able to transfer his pop into heat for Braun Breaker. And hopefully he can do that. Also, hopefully Rikishi won't act a fool when he finds out that Jey is not likely going to win this belt. It's just not likely it's going to happen. But they didn't do anything to make this match more interesting. Like, Pete Dunne got attacked before the match, but Sheamus didn't attack in the match. And that would have been an interesting wrinkle because they did have Bronson Reed make his return by crushing Braun Strowman through the announce desk by jumping off onto him off the barricade. And it would have been nice, like, okay, so Bronson Reed took out Braun Strowman. And then you could have had Sheamus with the shillelagh crash the head of Pete Dunne and have him taken out, leaving Jey Uso and Ilya Dragunov alone. And then you probably could have had Judgment Day come out there and try to jump Jey Uso with Dragunov, helps him fight them off. And then Jey Uso wins the match because Dragunov helped fight Judgment Day off with Jey Uso. So now you got Ilya Dragunov, even though he lost, he can move on and do something else. Maybe fight that big head bum JD McDonough. Maybe tangle up with Finn Balor a little bit, or tangle with Carlito or something. But they decided to just have Jey Uso pin Pete Dunne. Okay, that works. Fine. That works fine. So Raw was incredibly dry. It needs some Gatorade. It's dehydrated. This is a beef jerky of a Raw. It's meat technically, but a bunch of chemicals and some shit has been wrapped in package for too long. I guess they're about to tear down the building, the Saddle Dome, and that's why Bret agreed to show, is because they're going to tear down that building. They need to tear it down. It looks like shit from the outside. It looks like, Nia Jax sat on it at the top. It's just kind of like this crazy ill dip. Usually, I don't mind buildings that are, weirdly built, but that Saddle Dome thing was it looked like a saddle. Like the design was for you to put your nuts on the top of it. What a weird design to have for a facility that you put people in. Hey, what if we built an entire arena that looks like a saddle? It looks like a seat for a cowboy's butt. Oh, that's neat. Neato. Let's build that thing. Why would you build this thing? Why, Canadians, why would you build this thing? What is going on, man? It's like somebody building, like Henry Ford building a tower that looks like a car seat. Why? Call it car seat arena, car seat coliseum. No, why would you do this? Why would you ever need to do this? This is quite frankly some of the dumbest shit in the world. Canadians, stop it. Seek help. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
No one does it better.